So there appears to be a little bit of a question about identifying and 2 point perspective. So what we have here is more of a perspective style drawing, and it's comparing a 1 point perspective box to a 2 point perspective box. And so what you should notice when you're making observations and trying to identify perspective is this element of lines that are parallel to the picture plane. So in 1 point you have both the width and the height lines that are parallel, and the lines receding for depth converge, and that convergence is when things get smaller as they move away and receding to that vanishing point. With 2 point perspective, only the height lines are going to be parallel to the picture plane. The lines for both the width and depth, whichever side you want to call width and whichever side you want to call depth, is fine with me. But look, they start to converge. This gets smaller, this gets smaller. These lines are angling up. And then, of course, I've included the guidelines so you can kind of see how that works. So when you're looking for something that's in 2 point perspective, you want to make sure that you're seeing these two sides. If you only see the front of it or just one side of it, you're most likely in a 1 point perspective situation. Hopefully, if you see the two sides, it puts you in a position to where you are using something that's 2 point perspective. Again, if we're just starting out with a lesson about perspective or observational perspective, keep things simple. You don't need to overcomplicate them. But you want to make sure that you have that correct identification, and you should be able to, in any case, if you're looking at a 1 or a 2 point perspective box, be able to identify the vanishing points. And if you can't figure out a left and right vanishing point for 2 point perspective, then you may want to look at moving your position. But remember, stick with things that are more geometric shapes. A dresser. If you use a couch that's soft, it's got rounded edges, it's going to be much harder to see the perspective than it is to do something that's more kind of geometric, like a chair. And there's the number of supplemental files for perspective on the Dropbox.com site. If you're interested, it's definitely something I can give you access to. Here's kind of a list of some of the things we see. We see a lot of different pictures, things for designs. And it goes as far as reflections and perspective. And that's unfortunately probably a Photoshop font. No, it's not. It should have opened. But again, there's just this range of information. Our goal here now at this present moment is that identification of the difference between 1 and 2 point perspective. And so notice if you follow a line and you continue it out with a guideline, how you get to that vanishing point with either shape. And that works with realistic space like this. So if we're looking at this museum, we can see those lines of perspective. We can follow them back. We can use it to organize the space. Notice the guidelines included. Really helps understanding the changes in a shape as it recedes, as it gets smaller, and how lines that are normally parallel converge as they go off into the distance. I think this is a good example of seeing that, and how often if we kind of add another line, notice how it works with some of the other buildings as well. It's not always going to be the case that it works for every object, but if they're in the same orientation, you've got a situation here where a lot of the information is going to work together for you and really get you to a point to get that sense of space. But notice again, we're looking at two sides of the structure, and that's usually the first indication that you have 2 point perspective.